There was one correction on the story of when I went back on active duty. He said I actually went to my wife and asked permission. It was more like I went to my wife and begged for forgiveness after I told her I was going to leave. So she never said yes, and I'm sure she's still probably upset today over it. But she's out here somewhere. Where are you, Danielle? There you are. She's over there. Can you all hear me okay? Good to go. Veterans, Gold Star parents, distinguished guests, friends and family, thank you for coming together today to celebrate this Memorial Day. A day on which we pause to celebrate, honor, and remember those who sacrificed their lives and their families they left behind. Since the inception of this Memorial Day, hundreds of thousands of young Americans have given their lives so that we could live ours. Today is no different. Today our nation is engaged in two wars, which on a daily basis claims the lives of our citizens' most selfless men and women. Just this month, 24 Americans sacrificed their lives in Afghanistan and Iraq. For the vast majority of our nation, this pain is seen in the stories that they read in the paper, and they see it on the shows that they watch. But it is not felt as those who are in the arena of service. People are often amazed that there are those few who are willing to lay themselves down upon our democracy's altar of sacrifice, knowing full well that their country may require in their fullest measure their life. This desire to serve, this choice to commit one's life to the preservation of our democracy seems so alien to so many. It's a concept more Victorian in practice, out of date in today's world of reality TV shows and Twitter. But nevertheless, it's a choice that the few have made and will be continued to be made as long as we wish to remain free. What drives these men and women to pick up the shield and the sword in defense of our country? The reasons are complex, but for those that I knew who served, and for those that I know who continue to serve today, they joined out of a sense of obligation to those who went before them and a love of their country. A sense of indebtedness to those like the Marines of the greatest generation who were cut down by the thousands on Iwo Jima, or the lonely GI who, while drafted, still went and fought in the jungles of Asia while so many protested here at home. Whatever the reason, these Marines, these Americans that serve today, understand the unceasing and generational requirement of sacrifice. A price that the few have paid since the inception of our country, and a price, a debt, that will continue to be paid as long as our country exists. I joined the Marine Corps in 1998 because I believed then, as I do today, that this is the greatest nation ever, and that those with plenty should give the most. I attribute this desire to serve by being raised by a family that loved our country. As a young boy, we were taught the victories of our generations past, not the imperfections of our forefathers or the mistakes of a misguided few. We sang songs like My Country 'Tis of Thee, America the Beautiful. We took pride in our heritage, and we did not make excuses for who and what we were then and still are today, the greatest nation ever. As Terry said, while serving on a deployment in Asia in 2003, the war in Iraq erupted. And rather than going and fight, our battalion was held in place to watch. We watched from afar as Marines attacked and took Baghdad. We watched as the statue of Hussein fell down, and our president landed on the aircraft carrier to proclaim mission accomplished. As most of us did, and I'm sure most of you did, we thought the war was over. We were disgruntled. We felt that we had missed out on our generation's great challenge. So many of us got out, including myself. So I started my life, like Terry said, working, going to school at night, getting married, buying a house. All along the war raged on, all along Americans went and fought, and all along they died. And so soon I started to feel guilt. Guilt for not having gone. Guilt for not being there when my friends needed me the most. A couple years ago, I finally did deploy to Iraq, serving as a company commander in the city of Ramadi, a city once declared the most dangerous city in the world. Americans were dying by the dozens daily. But when I was there, it was a relatively stable city to Iraqi standards. And why? Because the hard-fought victories and the blood spilled by Americans who went before us. And to those I say thank you, and to their parents I say thank you. Today I still feel guilt for not being there earlier, not being there when my friends gave so much. Talking to people who have not served, they find it strange that going to Iraq once is not enough, that leaving your family for a year once is not enough. But when you have known those and have friends today who continue to serve and continue to give so much, how could you feel that what you did and what you gave was ever enough? One such Marine, a friend of mine, who gave his life was Captain Brett Morrell, who was killed on April 7th, 2004 outside of Fallujah, Iraq. He died leading a counterattack after his platoon had been ambushed. During the fight, he saw that his Marines were pinned down, and leaving a place of safety, he attacked an enemy machine gun position. By doing so, he saved his Marine's life, but at the same time, he gave his. For his actions, he was awarded the Navy Cross posthumously. I attended his funeral, and there, while I watched his young wife and family grieve his loss, I came to understand the full circle of sacrifice each of these fallen and their families experience, and the enduring pain that remains for those left behind. At Brent's funeral, I was amazed by the outpouring of grief and love by his friends and the community that he was raised in. Witnessing this love and sorrow reaffirmed my belief that there are still those places today where the words honor, duty, and country are not just read in the history books, but talked about at the dinner table and on the street where children play. Another Marine who stands out in my memory is Sergeant David Wimberg, who was killed on May 25th, 2005 in Haditha, Iraq. He had been one of my Marines for nearly 5 years. I'd watched him grow up from being a young private first class to becoming one of our company's best sergeants and squad leaders. He had a heart of gold. He was always professional, always mentoring and training his junior Marines. To me, Wimberg symbolizes the hundreds of thousands of Americans, the uncelebrated ones, the enlisted men and women who have borne the heaviest burdens for our wars and who, without hesitation, follow the orders of others, knowing full well it may cost them their life. I was not surprised when I learned from a buddy of mine who had fought with him that day that Wimberg died trying to kick open a door to an insurgent-filled house after his Marines had tried, only to have been beaten back by enemy fire. He saved his Marine's life that day, and he was awarded the Silver Star, our nation's third highest medal for valor. As we gather here today, there are thousands of others just like Morrell, just like Wimberg, who are performing amazing acts of heroism and bravery, not because they want to make the world safe for democracy or to spread our way of life. They go because their brothers in arms are doing so, and they go because they know that if they don't, who will? These few and their families, they do not decide when and where they will sacrifice. To them, it does not matter which way the winds of popularity blow. When they decided to join the military, they understood that wherever their colors will go, they will follow, and their families remain behind, stoic in their service and proud in their sacrifice. In our country today, there are so many people who seek pity for their lot in life, but these few and their families do not complain. They do not protest, and they do not ask for sympathy from the many. They do not complain to the newspapers when their spouses are making their fourth deployment in 6 years, and they do not question whether or not it is fair for 1% of our population to bear the burden for our nation's security and the full cost of 10 years of war. What can we, as private citizens, learn from these few and their families? From hearing their stories, we can learn that there are still those young Americans today who are just as great, if not greater than those of the greatest generation. We can learn that there's still those families that raise their children to put their country and others before themselves in the relentless pursuit of wealth and power. We can learn that while we should never celebrate war, we do need to honor our heroes and tell their stories so that their sacrifices will not go unknown, and hopefully by doing so, inspire a new generation of Americans to serve. Finally, we can learn that in this age of divisive dialogue, there are those Americans who put every imaginable difference aside to embrace a shared love of country and a commitment to each other. For me, I have learned to appreciate each day for what it is, a gift from God made possible only through the sacrifice of others. I've also learned to be a better husband to my wife, father to my children, knowing there are so many others who will never see theirs again. Just this month, I was on a plane coming back home, and I was talking to this lady, and she told me her father had been a fighter pilot in the Korean War and was shot down and killed. She told me her mother never remarried, and I asked her, "How old were you when this happened?" And she told me she was 1. So how do we honor these heroes and their families? How do we take one day each year to recognize those who sacrificed everything? Should we have more parades, sing more songs, fly more flags? Perhaps. But I would think that if we could ask the fallen and listen, they would tell us to honor them by how we live our lives. They would ask us to enjoy each day, each sunset, each moment of laughter, and our families, knowing that they sacrificed theirs so we could have ours. That is the lesson of Memorial Day, that by embracing the gift they gave us today, we seize the opportunity to make our lives and those around us better, and by doing so, making this country a greater place to live. One of my favorite songs is "I Vow to Thee, My Country." It's actually a British song, but it's so beautiful. This song, in my mind, speaks to the spirit of Memorial Day, those who lost their lives and the families they left behind. I vow to thee, my country, all earthly things above, entire and whole and perfect, the service of my love. The love that asks no questions, the love that stands the test, that lays upon the altar the dearest and the best. The love that never falters, the love that pays the price, the love that makes undaunted the final sacrifice. To the veterans here today, thank you for your service. You are my heroes. To the Gold Star parents, nothing we could say or ever will do will replace the loss of your loved one. And to my friends who are no longer with us, like Staff Sergeant Marvin Best, Corporal David Vicente, Sergeant David Bloomberg, and Captain Brett Morrell, and all the other fallen, I will never forget you. We will never forget you. Never. 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 Thank you.